Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and this week I'm pretty excited about this one because this is a project I've wanted to do on this podcast for quite a while, and we're now able to do it. I've got my friend Caleb from the Four Sides podcast,
What up?
and we've been talking about doing this for about a year now, doing different sorts of. It's pretty much the YouTube classic. It's rebooking um, either mishandled storylines or mishandled pay per view events and putting our spin on it in the way that we think would have been a whole lot better. Um, and Caleb and I have decided that the first rebooking opportunity, I guess you'd call it, or a rebooking challenge, will be arguably the worst WrestleMania ever, and that is WrestleMania 32. Um, WrestleMania 32 is kind of infamous for not listening to the fans.
Being
Um,
very long.
yeah, uh, drew really well, but just being very eh. And both of us are pretty confident we could put together a better card. Now, Caleb and I have both agreed that we have one rule to our rebooking, and that rule is that it's got to be
Gotta be.
based. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I said gotta be realistic.
Yeah,
That's pretty much.
we can't just be saying like oh WrestleMania 32. Well, just they, we make it WWE versus New Japan, and we have Kenny Omega versus AJ Styles, and we have Tanahashi versus The Undertaker. Like, no, we can't do that. It's got to be somewhat based in reality, based upon people that were signed at the time, or in the case of WrestleMania 32, people that were not injured, because that was, and I'll give. I'll give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to WWE slightly. They were at the time of this pay per view ravaged with injuries. Like
Mm-hmm.
Seth Rollins was hurt, John Cena was hurt, um,
Randy Orton.
yeah, Randy Orton was hurt. Neville Pac was hurt. Um,
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken,
Daniel
if
Bryan had to
I'm
retire. I
yeah,
mean,
if I'm not mistaken, Neville was actually supposed to originally win the Intercontinental title.
yeah, yeah. So we got to keep a little bit of respect to what was actually going on, because there's a lot of rebooking videos, and there's people with channels and podcasts much bigger than ours that have done these, and they do a tremendous job. But there's sometimes I'm listening or I'm watching them, and I'm like, you couldn't have done that match. So and so was hurt, or you couldn't have done that match. Like, this guy wasn't signed yet, and he wasn't gonna sign, and so we're keeping a little bit of the respect to that in our rebookings, but we are going to get this party started with our opening match of WrestleMania 32. And Caleb, what do you have opening the show?
So for my opening match is Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. And the reason I went with this match is because, the ladder match pretty much that took place originally, the ladder match was basically revolved around their feud anyway. So I was like, why not give them their own match just to kind of richen their feud, and they can even continue the feud after WrestleMania. And are we going with the? Are we going? Are we saying who the winners of the matches
Yes,
are?
yes, definitely say who the
Okay,
winners are.
yes. Winner would be Sami Zayn, new Intercontinental Champion.
It's kind of fun because me and Caleb talked off air about, like, hey, if we have a match in common, we could both talk about it. I have Sammy and KO later on my card, but I do not have it for the Intercontinental title. But I am starting with an Intercontinental title match. I am keeping the ladder match, and I'm keeping Zack Ryder winning because that was just a cool moment to me. But I'm going to go, for me, the Intercontinental title ladder match will be Zack Ryder, The Miz, Sin Cara, Stardust, Goldust, and Jack Swagger. You know,
Interesting.
it's kind of get your good mid carders in the match. I'd have the belts on Miz at this point in my timeline. Um, and I would have Ryder earn his way in. Just luckily, I'd really do a lot of promos to. I would devote some promo time to really build this up, so it's not just it's gonna be your multi-man car crash, but like at least make it seem like it's not your multi-man car crash. Do some promos, have Ryder talk about all my life I wanted a WrestleMania moment, and my only other WrestleMania was bad, and you know do that, Sin Cara, do his thing of wanting to prove himself by being Intercontinental Champion. Jack Swagger, he wasn't with the Real Americans at this time. I think they kind of split up, but um, just say his piece. The Miz, doing what the Miz does best. Play off of kind of the Stardust, Goldust issues they've been having, and how, and you could even play that into the match. But I'm still gonna go with Ryder's moment.
Oh.
And not saying he gets a long reign with it, but in my timeline, he holds it at least till the next pay per view, where he could lose it to. Well, more on that later.
That's fair. Reason before we move on to the next match, reason I picked KO and Sammy to open the show is because like I've always said time and time again, you need a strong opening to your show, and I think KO and Sammy would deliver. And I also think your ladder match would definitely deliver because how do you go wrong with a ladder match? Open WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's cliche at this point, but it's a proven theory.
Right. Right.
Oh,
Next match.
yes, go ahead.
All right, so the next match, I've actually got the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and the other participants in the original ladder match that I scrapped, except for the Miz, we'll get to that later. But the rest of them are going to be in this Battle Royal. Now, originally Baron Corbin won the Battle Royal, and he's not going to be in it. More to come later. But my winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal was going to be Apollo Crews, and the reason I picked him is because he was set to go to the main roster after WrestleMania anyways. And honestly, like I don't know, at the time there were just so many main roster call ups, and I feel like Cruz just kind of got lost in the shuffle at the time. Like as soon as he got called up, and I feel like this like winning the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal back when it still had some kind of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It would give them some good momentum going into the main roster.
Yeah, I'm just kind of saying, hey, keep it the same and make it on the pre-show for mine because I don't have on my card. So, for all intents and purposes, if you want to know what I would do with the Andre, I'd just say, keep it the same. Just replace some of the people I pulled out of it with other people. But to
You
your,
got you got you got to keep Big Show and Shaq in because that's good for business, fella.
well, I don't have that because more on that later with Big Show. But you're right. It is good for business. I just have something I think is a little bit better for business in mind because I never capitalized in hindsight. So I'm like, oh, if you're not going to capitalize at the match, let's do something else. But to your point, just kind of a real quick sidebar. You mentioned all the call ups. I kind of said about this card, I wish there was more call ups. I wish there was a little more tinkering with some things because I remember making the comment to a friend of mine. I said, WWE has this whole developmental system, this whole farm system for talent, that either aren't developed or they just don't have a spot for on the main roster yet. And yet they're just doing, yet none of them are getting called up and they're just bringing in old people. And granted, I got a couple older legends on my card as well, because for WrestleMania, you got to. But I said this would be the equivalent of the Cardinals instead of, calling up their AAA team and going, hey, who's ready to play, you know, who's ready to pitch, who's ready to play first base, who's ready to play center field, going, can we call Mark McGuire and see if he'll still play first base? Like, that's kind of what they were doing. Um, I don't have a super duper amount of call ups. I have one big one. More on that later, but yeah, I would probably put more call ups in my Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
Yeah,
That'd just
I
be my
think
one.
yeah, my thing with the call ups at the time, I mean, they were cool to see as a fan, but just kind of looking back on it, it's kind of like, they probably looked at NXT and were like, oh, those NXT guys, they really like them. They'll do great on the main roster. And then you get Tyler Breeze, who
Yeah,
was pretty much forgotten about 2 months after he debuted on the main
and
roster.
I'm the guy that said Tyler Breeze reminds me of a young Shawn Michaels the first time I saw him, and then like nothing. And I mean
Oh
that, and I
man.
mean that sincerely because I like the gimmick. It's kind of like a new
Oh,
take on the Heartbreak Kid, but nothing happened with it. But
right,
my
and I'm sorry. I'm kind of glad, like you kind of talked about how they have a bunch of people in developmental today and nobody's getting called up. I kind of look at that as they recently called up Solo and who else did they call? They called up somebody else. Can't remember who it was, but I mean they're slowing down with how many people they call up and giving them more time to
yeah,
work on their craft, and I think that's a good thing.
it's a good thing. But like in this situation where like your whole roster was bitten by the injury bug, hey, you got to do something. Because who knows how long those people were out for. So bringing people up to kind of place in certain spots I was for. My second match, though, is a spin on a match that actually took place. AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho, 2 out of 3 falls.
Okay.
And I'd have AJ win just because, I mean, AJ's getting ready to have a program with the WWE champion after WrestleMania. Maybe he should win.
Right.
Maybe he shouldn't have lost at WrestleMania if he's going to be fighting for the title at the very next pay per view, which I would have kept, in my head canon. That would have stayed the same. But yeah, 2 out of 3 falls. AJ Styles, Chris Jericho. Um, I can't remember. I know I want to say I keep things close to reality, but I can't remember if Jericho had beaten AJ by this point. I know they had like a series of matches. I would make sure Jericho had at least one win over AJ before we went into this. But
So I think what happened originally was the night after the Rumble, AJ beat Jericho, and then
at the
on
pay per
some
view,
some
I
some
think AJ,
random some random episode of SmackDown, Jericho beat Styles, and then they had a rubber match at Fastlane, and then they turned into Y2 AJ for
I
about a week
remember.
or two.
Yeah, if you have one of those Y2 AJ shirts, I'm sure that's worth a lot of money
Oh
now.
yeah. Oh god.
um, so basically, in my timeline, I would just AJ wins the Raw match, Jericho wins the Fastlane match. You could still do the Y2 AJ turn and make Jericho a heel for the rubber match, but 2 out of 3 falls. The an internet dream match. AJ versus Chris Jericho with AJ Styles winning his first WrestleMania match, and also this means by the time we get to the Undertaker Boneyard match, AJ hasn't lost, so you could then build off of AJ going, well, I never lost. I'm going to have a better streak than you, Undertaker, and you can use that to play into the Boneyard match.
Yeah. Good point.
So yeah, next match.
My next match is not AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho. It's actually AJ Styles versus The Miz.
Ooh.
And the reason I switched this up a little bit was because AJ and Jericho, they were having a good feud at the time, but this may be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I just wasn't a fan of their match at Mania.
AJ, kind of, I agree. Like AJ and Jericho did not have the dream. They didn't have the match we all dreamed of. I will concede that point.
And
But
and I think it was because we've seen them fight 3 times before that.
yeah,
Like if they wanted to do that, like they should have done it like WrestleMania first time. But in this case, I went with Styles versus The Miz because just The Miz is very fitting foe for AJ. It's not a whole lot to say. The story just kind of writes itself. You got the indie darling AJ Styles versus the homegrown WWE star The Miz, and Of course, I've got AJ Styles going over in his first WrestleMania because you just kind of have to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Especially since, like you said, he's going into that WWE title program, so you got to make him look strong.
Yep. I mean, that's not bad. That's
So he can make Roman look strong.
exactly. And that's
That's
in
right.
20 and 20.
Yeah,
We're basing this in reality. You got to make Roman look
yeah,
strong in 2016.
that's right. That's right.
My next match is for the tag team championships. I'm gonna build it up as a triple threat match for the tag team titles with uh, Harper and Rowan, the Wyatt family, versus the Dudley Boys, who were still on WWE payroll at the time, versus the New Day. But this is my first big call up surprise, and I'm not a big fan of them, or at least one of them anymore. But again,
Enzo and Cass.
yep, putting myself in the complete headspace that I was in 2016. Enzo and Cass make their debut. You hear that whole arena do the Enzo speech, which was
How you
hot.
doing?
Yeah, how you doing? A
How you doing?
certified G and a bona fide stud, and all those things that I used to like before I found out what a piece of shit Enzo Amore was in real life. And they interject themselves to make it a four-way match. They don't win, but they don't get pinned. The New Day pin the Dudley Boys in a passing of the torch moment, but
Smart.
you know, and you gotta keep the New Day with the belts because they're getting ready to, they're on the road to beating
Oh,
Demolition's record that year. You gotta keep that going. But Enzo and Cass debut on the grandest stage. They look like stars, and they look strong in not taking the pin. And yeah, so
very smart. Very smart.
all right, next match.
Match 4 is possibly one of the biggest missed opportunities in WrestleMania history. It's Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt.
Now I have that one later on my card, but I actually have this one, not the next match, but the match after. Um,
Okay.
so yes, I agree. I wanted this match, and they teased at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, they did, and then they gave it away on freaking Roadblock.
Yeah, there was a lot more that could have been done with this. A lot more. Bray Wyatt was still really hot and really doing, the creepy, spooky shit. And it would have been really interesting to see Bray Wyatt trying to get in Brock Lesnar's head with the spooky shit. A vignette of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman having to go to the Wyatt compound, without any haunted refrigerators. Um, just something like that. Like, it would have been. I know we had Brock and Taker, but it was Taker kind of doing a little bit more of his, not a lot of supernatural stuff from Taker, but like, it would have really been cool to see some, to kind of see like Brock's, arguably, oh, he ended the streak. This is the strongest, guy in WWE, kind of getting the head games played with him and seeing how he reacts. I
Yeah.
kind of harken it back, like the way I envision it is, I kind of want to do it similarly. Whenever I was it was before I started watching wrestling, but like I saw like some clips of it whenever I was younger. Um, Before the Yokozuna Undertaker casket match at Royal Rumble '94, and you have Yokozuna always emotionless and cold, and he beats Bret Hart and he ends Hulkamania and all these different things that Yoko was doing during his title run. Um, Actually being shook up, actually showing emotion and like you seeing like, oh, there's some the this monster can be messed with a little bit, and I'm kind of envisioning something similar
Yeah,
in my storyline
and
with Brock and Bray.
yes, and since back to the whole basing this in reality thing, and you brought up the idea of them of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman going to the compound. You know what was a big craze around this time? The whole cinematic matches, and you could have even had, like, I'm not saying the WrestleMania match would have been one of these, but
Like
they
a
could,
cinematic vignette or something.
they could have one at like Fastlane or hell even after WrestleMania if they wanted to continue the feud. How I would build it up is kind of similar to they go to the compound. I would have the Wyatts do something like kidnap Paul Heyman, and
Yeah,
then pretty
Brock.
pretty much. And then Brock just pretty much gets pissed off and takes out every Wyatt up to WrestleMania to the point where they can't be there for the match, so it's just Brock and Bray at WrestleMania.
You could well, I couldn't do that part because I have the Wyatt family in the tag title match.
Right,
Um,
right.
but I could do something like maybe at Roadblock or at Fastlane or something like that. You could have like build it up as Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman go to the compounder. Um, Something of that nature to where you can be like, oh, what's gonna happen with Brock Lesnar doing this? And the only like thing where you're teetering on reality is, are you gonna be able to talk Brock Lesnar into coming in and shooting a vignette that may take all day? That's the only thing with Brock Lesnar doing something like that where maybe he'll
That's
do it, maybe he
true.
won't.
Nowadays, he'd probably be happy to do it, but back then,
Show him the money, and I'm sure he would. Um,
oh yeah. But the thing is, there's so many directions that this story could have gone in, but instead we got Brock versus Dean, which is a complete flop and had very little to no story to it.
no, yeah, and Brock didn't want to wrestle that.
Right.
Um, Again, like I know everybody's gonna be saying like, "Oh, why don't you have Bray go over?" Like we're talking about reality here, folks.
Yeah, Brock
Brock
Lesnar does
Lesnar's winning
win.
this match. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it'll be a lot better than Brock versus Dean, but Brock's still winning this.
Yeah. So okay, well, we'll just go on to the next match. That one I have a little bit further down the card, but let's
All
go ahead and
right,
talk
all
about
right.
that here. What is your next match?
My match after that would be Chris Jericho taking on The Undertaker.
Hmm.
So this was one I kind of had to think about a little bit because I switched a lot of stuff around up on this, and I was like, who would be good for Undertaker to go up against? Because I don't want to like push him off the card. And then I thought, bam, Chris Jericho, and I think he would have had a way better match with Jericho than he would have with Shane because let's just face it, like the Undertaker Shane match did nothing for anybody really.
No.
I mean, we got the one cool moment jumping off the cell. That was pretty much it. But anyways, this match, honestly, I feel like the if it was Undertaker versus Jericho, I think this match would have gone really well. I think it would have been could have been so well that maybe Undertaker would actually feel content after this and have his final match in his home state of Texas, unless somebody offered him a big bag of money, of course.
That's what was going to happen to me. I have Taker on my card, and we'll get to that later. But
But
with mine, I'm fully keeping in mind that he's going to get offered a lot of money in the future, and he's not going to have his
oh yeah,
last match. So
yeah. But anyways, like the build up of this match, like as far as the story, you could tell the story of Chris Jericho has all these accomplishments, but he's never beat the dead man one on one, and
yeah,
you could do like have Jericho call him out, kind of like Cena did for 34, or if you wanted to go the heel route, you could have him do stuff like copy Undertaker's moves in his matches and bringing up Undertaker's past, kind of maybe not as bad as CM Punk did, but you
yeah,
catch where I'm going, and of course Undertaker wins the match, but it's amazing.
yeah. Um, the next match I have on my card is um, Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens in a non-title match. Just blood
Oh,
feud. Bring what they were doing in NXT, put it on the main roster. I know it'd be hard to convince Vince. It's a weird. Didn't realize how weird that would sound whenever I wanted to say that, but
what are you talking about? Those NXT fans love it.
yeah,
Ah,
it'd be
they'll work for WrestleMania.
yeah. I'd be hard to convince him that to keep NXT canon, but I feel like when they saw the confrontation at the Royal Rumble, people were on board with it. You could build the feud. Kevin Owens wins, and this would lead into a couple months of him and Ryder feuding for the Intercontinental title afterwards.
All right.
Um,
So kind of putting Owens and Zayn on the back burner for a little bit
yeah,
after
but
the Mania.
it's one of those things you can always go back to it. But,
Oh yeah,
he wins this one, and then once KO wins the Intercontinental title, maybe pre-best friends with Chris Jericho, you could bring it back.
yep.
Say he wins the Intercontinental title in June, could bring the Intercontinental, he could win the Intercontinental title in July. KO could lose it at SummerSlam and then still be on pace to win the Universal title.
Yeah. I would say as long as it's not like one of those things where Kevin Owens just straight up destroys Sami Zayn.
No, it'd be the match that these guys are capable of having. Maybe not like a long epic, but kind of your standard 8 to 12 minute WrestleMania match.
That's fair. Well, I was talking about like more of like when KO first came in and pretty much just ran through Sami Zayn.
Now this would
Like
be
very,
you could even honestly, now that you kind of mentioned that, you could just have Kevin win with a roll up. Or roll up with his feet on the ropes. You could do the heel Jericho AJ finish and just put it with Kevin Owens.
yep.
And then you leave plenty of meat on the bone to revisit this down the road.
Fair.
All right, next match.
Match 6 is probably one that you have on your card as well. It's the women's title triple threat match.
That is my next match. And
That's your next match.
Yeah,
I
said just keep it the same as it was in real life. There is nothing wrong with how they built this up. There's nothing wrong with the women involved. There you go. Like, I'm not like trying to downplay the women's role on the card. I'm not trying to do that. But for this one, it's just like, this was one of the few things about this card that wasn't broke. So, maybe you could have added one more woman into it. Maybe through Natalia or somebody else in there to make it a fatal 4-way. But this is one where I'm like, hey, no need to fuck with this one.
Yeah, you just like out of all the matches, I think this is one that kind of remained the same for me because it just played such an important part in
Absolutely.
the importance of women's wrestling today. However, there are a couple things that I would change. So this is just kind of a nitpicky thing from like a fan's perspective, but I would have a stipulation in place where Ric Flair was actually banned from ringside because
yes, I could do that. I'd go on board with that.
I kind of like I get why he was there to kind of help Charlotte get heat, but at the same time, like at the time, I kind of felt like he was kind of taken away from Charlotte's matches.
Yeah.
And I am going to change the winner of this just because I'm one of those where it's like WrestleMania, everybody loves a happy ending, and she was probably the most over female babyface at the time, and it'd be a great WrestleMania moment with her going over. So I would have Sasha Banks win and become the new champion.
See, I'd still keep Charlotte, but that's just because in my timeline, you keep the Charlotte Sasha feud, but when they eventually get to Hell in a Cell, just have Sasha win and be done with it there. Started here with Charlotte, and then when you get to the first women's Hell in a Cell match, Sasha wins, confetti, main event.
Yeah, I mean, if you take all the hot potato stuff out,
definitely take all the. I would not have Sasha Banks win that title until Hell in a Cell.
Right. Yeah, because I think that was one of the big reasons why I picked Sasha to win, because just to kind of avoid the whole hot potato thing.
Right.
Have Sasha be champion up to like, I don't know, SummerSlam or something. But anyway.
It's got the way I see it is Charlotte wins, goes on a tear, maybe by some Money in the Bank, Sasha gets a rematch, Charlotte cheats, do a dusty finish, at SummerSlam, and then
No,
I
that's
think
defeated.
then at Hell in a Cell. Okay, it's over. No Ric Flair, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide for Sasha for Charlotte. Sasha gets her win. The women's main, the first women's Hell in a Cell match main event's a pay per view. Then it's over. But I'm still keeping this the exact same way it is.
All right, that's fair.
All right, so next match.
Ooh. Match number 7. I actually took 2 of the original matches and combined them into one on this one. So I've got a Fatal 4-Way TLC match for the WWE Tag Team titles. I got the New Day, the League of Nations, the Usos, and the Dudley Boys. And so in my scenario, with the original ladder match getting scrapped, I felt like there needed to be something in place, and this be a win. In my opinion, this will be a win-win scenario because the New Day versus League of Nations, and then the Usos versus the Dudley Boys. Those were both lackluster, and I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like if you put both, I feel like if you put both of those feuds in the TLC match, I feel like you would get an epic match out of it. And of course, the New Day retains because you got to keep that title reign going.
Okay. Now this is where the part on the car ride originally had Bray and Brock. So I'll just move up my next match to this point, which is an 8-man tag team match. The League
Okay.
of Nations versus Jimmy and Jey Uso, their dad Rikishi, and The Rock. The Rock had that 6-second match. Yay, cool, The Rock, but whatever. This would just kind of be like, okay, you kind of just had this. The way I'm doing it, you just had this big, intense Brock Lesnar, Bray Wyatt with a lot of, spooky. This is supposed to be some fun. This is where you bring in the legends, like the League of Nations try cheating, you know, use handcuffs
So
to handcuff Rikishi, do something to The Rock. They're beating down the Usos. Here comes Shawn. Here comes Mick. Here comes Austin. Austin frees, all the stuff, and then The Rock gets a rock bomb and a people's elbow on Wade Barrett, who's departing soon. Barrett does the honors on the way out. Somebody gets a stink face. Somebody gets sweet chin music. Somebody gets a stunner, a mandible claw. Like, play the hits. Here's your nostalgia. Here's your Attitude Era. Everybody drinks a beer. Shawn and Mick really don't drink, but they could pretend for all intents and purposes. And you kind of have your feel good, let's hear it for the legends, folks, sort of match.
that's interesting. That kind of came out of nowhere with the whole Rikishi and The Rock being in the match.
And it's a tag match, so Rikishi does. Neither one of them have to bump. Rikishi said, "Oh, Rikishi just hit a couple super kicks and a few, get a stink face in on somebody, and everybody's happy. The Rock just does a rock bomb on a people's elbow. Everybody's gonna be happy. On the heat portion, you could do something to where they could take something without getting, jeopardizing their health or an upcoming movie role to put them at a commission to where, the legends coming out could have their moment. But you gotta do a rock bomb on a people's elbow, and the Rock's gonna
Oh,
win the match, and like I said, legends come out, play the hits. You know.
yep. So I'm assuming, like, I'm just kind of taking a guess on this. My thinking of how this would be built would be like you have League of Nations and the Usos kind of feuding, and then the whole numbers game,
Yeah, the
and then the
numbers game.
Usos basically call in their family
They
for
call
help.
it. They call in Rikishi for help. They'll do
Okay.
something. They'll do something to Rikishi and go like, "Well, we got one more family member to help us. If you smell, via
Oh
satellite,
yeah.
of course, I'm gonna, you know, go let The Rock do The Rock on the League of Nations.
Right.
I can't write for The Rock, but The Rock can just do it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Damn, I'm kind of sad I didn't think of that one,
Yeah.
honestly.
Um.
Um, yeah. So next one.
Yeah. Go ahead with yours.
Okay, my next match will be my semi-main event actually, and this is just kind of a cool down before the main event. It's so this is going to have the same stipulation that Undertaker and Shane McMahon had, but it's going to be a no holds barred match, and it's going to be Shane McMahon versus Baron Corbin. And I think, like I said earlier, the whole Shane McMahon Undertaker match didn't do anything for anybody.
It
I
made no
would have had
sense. Why?
right,
That's like the big one because, for me, I was just going like, why would the Undertaker do something for Vince McMahon? I didn't even
right.
watch Raw. I literally read the results on my phone I'm like, that can't be right, and then looked it up on YouTube. I'm like, so that's what happened.
I
This
think it's
doesn't make
probably
any fucking sense.
right. It seemed like one of those things. It's like, oh, we got Shane McMahon back. What now? But,
I will be
but,
addressing that later on mine. Um,
but anyways, I put Baron Corbin in this match. I would have him debut kind of as Vince's right hand man because he's the big guy and he be kind of his right hand man and
Ironically,
Vince's
kind of what
future
they're doing
thing.
now with Baron Corbin and
Yeah,
JBL.
yeah, I love that. By the way, that is so awesome. That's gonna get a whole lot bigger. But I feel like this would help Corbin get more over, in my opinion. And
Mm-hmm.
Shane losing to Undertaker did nothing for Taker. Taker's going to be Taker no matter what. But if Shane lost to Corbin, this would give Corbin, the nice rub, give him the kind of like Apollo, give him the big momentum booster going on to the
Right.
main roster.
Um, okay. So you have one less match than me, so I'm going to do my next two, and then because I
All
know we've
right.
talked off, I know we talked off camera. Our main event's the same, so we can just go into that.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah.
my next two matches, the next one I'm going to go with is The Undertaker versus Finn Balor,
Oh.
and I would essentially somewhat steal what they kind of, or at least kind of steal with what they eventually did with Taker and Cena, where Cena's calling him out, no answer. Cena's calling him out, no answer. But I'm going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to have Finn Balor on NXT. Just, I wanted to be a wrestler my whole life. And, I've been to the mountaintop in NXT. And, at TakeOver, I'm going to beat Samoa Joe. It's like I'm Australian when I'm doing it. But I'm going to win the NXT title from Samoa or what, do all that. Still have that match. Still have that amazing match from TakeOver. But I'm going to stake my claim. I want a match at WrestleMania, and I want to call out the greatest wrestler. I want to call out the Undertaker.
Hmm.
Sorry for my Australian Finn Balor, everyone, but he's calling him out. Fight me,
So,
Taker. Fight me,
so
Taker.
is
Every week.
so is this so is this kind of a last minute match, like a last minute addition?
It's kind of like you would start doing this. Like I'd start having Finn do this in February on NXT.
Okay. Yep.
Fight me, Undertaker. Fight me, fight. No answer. No answer. No answer. He's still kind of doing that. Maybe a few little subtle jabs. Of him like maybe doing a tombstone or something. Joe, I'm coming for you, and then I'm coming. Take a fight me, and then at Takeover, Finn loses. He's kind of in there. We think this is the swan song. Thank you, Finn. Thank you, Finn. Bong. And you see the Undertaker on the ramp at Takeover.
Okay.
And he looks at Finn Balor, and Finn Balor's beaten down. He's being helped, kind of like being set up, and he does with the the throat slash, you know, and we know the match is set. And Finn puts up a good fight. You talk about the fact that he fought for his life the night before at Takeover, and now he's facing the Phenom. So the fact that even though Finn loses, but the fact that he puts up such a good fight after having that kind of a match, it's again push and defeat, and this is where you would theoretically kind of start grooming Finn to be on the timeline to be the first Universal Champion. Yes, he gets hurt, but start that trajectory now. start a trajectory where he could win that Universal title and theoretically call Undertaker out next year. Whether or not that actually happened remains to be seen. It wouldn't, because in real life, they're fantasy or real life, they're going to keep Roman and Undertaker for the next year. But to the point to where you could conceivably believe that Taker could have another match against Finn. And also kind of build his progression, of like, I know here on the internet everybody's got to win. Oh, Finn lost, so he's buried. No, he's not. So, to me, this would be like a good way to get Taker on the card, a good way to debut somebody on the main roster. It'd make more fucking sense than Undertaker doing Vince McMahon's bidding for whatever fucking reason.
Right. Yeah, I guess a thumbs up.
And speaking of Vince McMahon's bidding, here's where we talk about that storyline. 6-man tag for the control of Raw. The Authority, Vince McMahon, Kane, and The Big Show versus Shane McMahon, Dolph Ziggler, and a mystery partner.
Ooh.
Yeah. The mystery partner. So basically, they say like nobody's gonna team with you. We're not gonna. You kind of make it seem like have the Authority beat up people that empathize with Shane and Dolph. Because Dolph was always against the Authority, and so was Shane. They're going up against Authority members, and then kind of like the mid card guys that you would think they'd try and turn to, like they get beat down or they get threatened with, we'll fire you, we'll keep you off the WrestleMania card, something like that, to where they can't, looks like a handicap match, right?
Right.
So it looks like a handicap match. The match starts off as a handicap match. Where get a big, all hope is lost, but the referee is down. Vince McMahon's, he's not bumping, but or at least not taking very many bumps, but he's getting his cheap shots in, and it's for control of Raw, or Shane and Ziggler are fired from the WWE forever, banished. Then you have a double down, and then all of a sudden, as before this was a thing, before Tony Schiavone did it, Sting. And I know Sting was hurt. Before, everybody goes like, I thought this was based in reality. I know Sting was hurt. Sting's not going to do much in this match. He's going to come in as the partner. The refs are down. Bat shot to Big Show. Bat shot to Kane. Couple Stinger splashes. Stinger splash on Vince. Tags in. Scorpion deathlock on Vince. Vince taps. Over. I think a lot of people would be okay with the last memory of, because at this time, we thought Sting was done. We didn't know AEW was going to happen. We didn't know he'd be essentially the new New Jack in AEW right now. Just diving off of shit. So you keep it safe, like I said, I know he had spinal stenosis, but I'm sure he could swing a baseball bat and put a Scorpion Deathlock on, at the very least. He puts the Scorpion Deathlock on Vince and gives control of Raw to Shane. Hall of Fame. Gets a nice way to leave WWE rather than, just losing to Triple H and having his career ended. Thank you, Sting. You made Vince tap at least. It was kind of a bet. And the whole, he had problems with the Authority, had problems seeing the Authority. This would kind of be a soft end to the Authority. I know, because the brand split happens, and, there is, Seth comes back, and there is smatterings of it still around, but this is kind of how you would end that whole storyline. There you go.
Yep, I like it. Shane wins. Sting gets
Shane gets the thing. Sting gets a win at a WrestleMania, and, I don't think no one would bitch about Sting just putting one move on Vince McMahon tapping out.
Right. You can't do that, damn it.
So, main event, which is the same for both of us because we talked about this. At least
the main event is Triple H versus Roman Reigns versus Dean Ambrose for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Do we need to really talk about this one?
No, well, now who do you have win and who do I have win? I forget whether we're on the same page there.
Okay. I don't think I've told you my winner yet. Do you want me to? I guess I'll talk about how I kind of build up on
Yeah,
my end.
yeah, we'll talk about it, and then
Okay, so
my ending is going to be very anticlimactic. I'm just going to warn everybody right now.
oh god. Uh, so basically for my build up, Dean Ambrose gets screwed over at Roadblock, and then the WWE board directors recognizes Triple H's abuse of power, and they add Dean Ambrose to the title match at WrestleMania, making it a triple threat match. Not a whole lot to say. Fans would actually have someone
To root
that they
for.
want to cheer for, as you know, Ambrose was easily the most over babyface at the time, with the likes of Cena and Orton out injured. My winner would be Dean Ambrose, new World Heavyweight Champion. Everybody goes home happy instead of upset.
Well, I kind of have the same storyline. He gets shafted. I would have the class. I would bring back the classic. Linda McMahon is coming in to lay the law down story. That was always the good trope of the ad.
Oh,
That was always the big trope of the Attitude Era. Was when Vince got too crazy, here came Linda, and I would have Linda say, you know, Triple H, you're the champion. You can no longer. You have a conflict of interest, so it is in her decision that that's the match. Here's the anticlimactic part. Because this is fantasy, but it ain't that fucking fantasy. WWE, there was one answer and one answer only to everything at this time. And
yep,
that answer was Roman Reigns.
yep.
So while
I saw it.
huzzah, Dean Ambrose is in it, Roman Reigns is gonna win. Like I don't care what I just do. I like your ending better? Yes. Would I rather see your ending? Yes. Fantasy is fantasy, but we're not that fantasy. Roman Reigns is winning.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously, but
yeah.
here's the thing about fantasy. Like, as long as you keep it realistic, like you can have the happy ending, but your ending is more realistic.
My
To
the way I'm kind of seeing this in my head canon is yes, Roman wins. He beats Triple H and not Dean, so Dean doesn't lose. Um, but later on in the year, we get that Shield triple threat. This could be kind of the start of a lot more. Like they already had their one match where Roman won. This could be the start of a lot more like, okay, we're brothers, but I'm not really liking you much anymore right now. Story with Dean. It kind of builds up more tension for later on in the summer where they would be going with this storyline a little bit more.
I see.
Um, basically, that's the best way you can run this when even in your fantasy land, at least in my fantasy land, Vince McMahon's still going, no, damn it. I let you have your fun with Sting. I let you have your fun with Finn Balor, but you're not having fun now. Vince is still kiboshing the fun right now, and Roman Reigns is the guy. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it took them until a pandemic era to finally get Roman right, but this is what was going to happen. So, just.
But hey, we all love Roman Reigns now, right?
Oh, yeah, I love the tribal chief. I acknowledge
Oh,
him.
yeah, we the ones.
Oh, apropos of absolutely nothing we've talked about, they were doing a big crowd shot at All Out, and everybody was doing some kind of pose, and most people were Too Sweeting or Bullet Club or something like that. Me, being the troll I am, was doing We the Ones.
Hell yeah.
um, but yeah, but this does. It's not the ending we want, but there's a carrot there for the ending you want coming later. That's the one that's probably where my like, hey, don't get mad at me. Dean didn't get pinned.
Well,
Dean and Roman lock eyes. Like it's gonna be me and you one day, and then
well,
eventually it
even
is by the summer.
the thing is, like, I think the best part about having the triple threat is because let's face it, nobody was invested in Roman Reigns versus
No.
Triple H. At least, like, whether Roman wins or not, hell, even if Triple H wins for some godly reason, you still have that baby face that you want to root for in Dean
Yes.
Ambrose,
Yep.
and
Exactly.
that's important to have.
People at the very least, even if Roman wins, again, I got to emphasize, I'm just going with what would actually happen, not with what I
Right?
want to see happen. I like Caleb's ending better. But at
Yeah.
least by having this match, people aren't booing the main event of fucking WrestleMania.
Right.
They're
Exactly.
chanting for Ambrose at least, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um. So yeah, that is WrestleMania 32 in our fantasy land. Let us know what you thought. Let us know which one you liked better. Let us know what your card would be. And let us know if there's any more ones you'd like to see us do. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And follow me on my social media pages. Facebook.com/AthleticGeekA9. Twitter at Athletic_GeekA9. Instagram AthleticGeekA9. Donate to my Patreon if you feel so inclined. And Caleb, yeah, I know you got a lot of stuff going on.
Oh yeah. Check out my podcast at Foresight, or not at foursidetsiv.com. I got my own domain now. I don't know if I've been on here since I had that, but there is foursidetsiv.com. I'm speaking of the whole fantasy booking kind of that we did today. I'm doing a lot of my own. I've been doing a lot of my own fantasy booking scenarios. Like one I did recently was I booked the rest of Edge's career, and then I turned T-Bar back into Dominant Dijakovic. And one that I'm going to be uploading pretty soon is going to be the in-ring return of Wade Barrett. So
Ooh,
head on over there and check those out. Also, I don't know if this is going to be uploaded by Saturday the 12th.
it will be.
It will be. Okay, so if you're listening to this, come on out to Perryville, Missouri. The Perryville High School Cape Championship Wrestling presents Perryville Chaos. It's going to be a event, kind of help raise some funds for the school. AEW star Fuego del Sol is currently scheduled to be there, so come on out for a fun night of action.
Definitely. Check out that show. Check out Four Sides, and we'll see you next time.